Let's take a look at the specifications in detail. First, the hierarchy of the specifications. At the top of the tree we have the case specifications, which is orientation to all contractors on the project. Then we have the work specifications. These are the specifications which each contractor gets and which each contractor will price his project in accordance with. So if you forget something here, you're going to get extra works when the project starts on site. Under the work specifications, there's a summary of building components in the work specifications, and each of those building components has its own building component specification. And this is used by the workers on the building site to actually build the building in accordance with. So you must make this in a language which is easy to understand for the people working on the actual scaffolding. So we have the case specifications, and the case specifications, if we look in detail here, has a summary of contracts. So if this is a let's say a main contract, then you would write a summary of the main contract, and you would write works underneath. For example, demolition works, concrete works, masonry works, carpentry works, etc. If this is individual trade contracts, then you would write summary of contracts. So then you would write demolition contract, concrete contract, masonry contract. So there's a difference between works and contracts depending on whether it's a main contract or an individual trade contract. As I said, this is in the case specification is going to be used by the administrative level of the project leader, and its orientation to all contractors working on site, telling them about, first of all, what contracts or works are involved, and then telling about how the project is, how the drawings are registered, what the project organization is. The amendments to GC 92 are mentioned here, and everything about the building site is mentioned here. In other words, who does what on the building site, which contractor is responsible for what, orientation about it. Also about the health and safety, orientation about health and safety, and the health and safety plan will be included here. And then there's something about how we should take care of noise, vibration and dust on site. In other words, it's telling the contractors when they can work, what time they can work, from let's say 7 o'clock in the mornings to say 4 o'clock in the afternoons, how much vibration they're allowed to emit, and also, or rather to produce, and also how to prevent vibration from damaging constructions, existing constructions, and how to prevent dust from spreading, and so on. There's something about quality assurance, and there's something about when they should take part in planning and scheduling. So this is all about orientating the different contractors on the project about the project itself. Now this is just a summary of the different things. It's just to tell you how the case specification is done. The actual case specifications you can download on the link which is given in the Prezi, and it looks like this. Here we have the case specifications, and in this case these case specifications are divided into two columns. We have a column after the introduction, or after the table. Then we see the left column and the right column. So if you write something in the right column, that takes precedence in the contract specifications. So it's like everything on this side is valid for the project, and if you don't mention anything on this side, then it goes over to this side. This is one way of doing it. Well, if we look at the orientation, this is just explaining what this project is about. So you write something about your project here, and then we have the summary of contracts here, where you write which contracts, if it's individual trade contracts, you write the carpentry contract, masonry contract, etc. If it's a main contract, you omit the word contract and you leave the word works instead. Then it becomes a summary of works, carpentry works, masonry works, etc. You write about how your projects are numbered and so on in this section over here. And then we go on to the next section. And here you can write the amendments to GC 92. You don't have to write the whole GC 92 out, because that is considered to be common knowledge. So you write only the amendments to GC 92. Talk with your law teacher about the most important clauses to amend. Now the case specification should be done one case specification per group. So if you're working in a group, you're working on a specific contract type, you make your specifications to fit that contract type. For example, main contracts or individual trade contracts. But if you look at the specifications, in some situations you have to take consideration to this X that's written here. So contractor X must convene. So every time there's an X, you have to consider what that X is. For example, here, contractor X must convene a meeting with participation of the project management. This could be, for example, the masonry contractor must convene a meeting with the participation. And if you look at the rest of it, you could say covering and protection of building components must be undertaken by the masonry contractor or the carpentry contractor, whoever you choose. And you can write extra things here. So X's mean that you have to consider some person or something in the case specifications, and all the X's must of course be filled. Here's an important one: the employer must mark out once and for all X numbers. In other words, 5 main reference lines and 7 reference levels as stated in the drawing number. You fill the X in with a number. And contractor X is responsible, for example, the masonry contractor is responsible for maintaining these settings and levels. So look at these and fill them out as appropriate. There's another one here called the contractor X must establish, run and maintain and remove the following cabins. The carpentry contractor must establish, maintain, etc. The number of cabins, portable cabins for 50 people, for example, with toilet, and meeting cabins containing a meeting room for 7 people and 5 separate offices. So look at your project, see how many offices you need and so on, and fill them in as appropriate. Quite an important item under the case specifications is the section about inclement weather. The schedule here, which is the schedule you should put into your case specifications, shows us exactly how many days we can expect to work in the different months of the year. For example, when you're working on the carcassing structure of the building, or you're doing asphalting and so on, these days indicate the number of effective working days on the building site. The difference between these days and the actual calendar days is the number of inclement weather days. In other words, the number of days where you cannot work on the building site. So this section here should be included in your case specifications, whereas the red stuff here is just explanation about what it's all about. So to sum up the case specifications for the 5th semester, each group makes one case specifications that's valid for all the members of the group. And I suggest that you split up the work of the case specifications between you so that you can consider what these X's should be. Obviously, you should talk together about them. Make sure that everyone is in agreement that the stuff you put or the information you put where the X's are valid for all contractors on that particular group's project. And that ends this video.